Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe and hit the bell icon for new updates. What really broke them up? In 2003, Wheeler Dealers came on British TV with a simple but awesome idea. Let's buy a cheap old car, fix it up, and sell it for a little profit. But what made these shows super fun to watch wasn't just the idea. It was how well they worked together. Mike Brewer was a fast-talking car salesman who was really good at making deals and charming people. Edd China was a tall, quiet car genius with messy, high-rent, dirty hands who knew everything about fixing cars. Together, they didn't just flip cars. They changed what car TV shows could be like, when most car shows were all about drama and explosions instead of learning. Wheeler Dealers was different and fresh. It taught people real stuff. Edd did not just say a part needed to be changed, he explained. Why? He took apart engines, rebuilt gearboxes, and made it easy for people who had never used tools to understand. Meanwhile, Mike would find good cars that nobody wanted, bargain with sellers, and add just enough excitement to make the buying scenes feel like mini action movies. They was fun, helpful, and real. The two guys quickly became favorites in homes of car lovers around the world. As the show got bigger, so did their fame. Mike as azimuth TV host with a good eye for deals. Edd as the careful engineer who could survive in the rustest old car. They were totally different people, but they worked together perfectly. What started as a cheap car show for a small group soon became a huge hit shown in over 100 countries. Fans didn't just watch Thevolds. You felt like they were in Thegarage, learning with two very different but equally excited car lovers. For Morathon 10 years, Mike and Edd seemed like they couldn't be separated, but even thieves partnerships can break. And as we'll find out, what looked perfect on TV was hiding some serious problems behind the scenes. By the late 2000s, Wheeler Dealers had become more than just a successful British car show. It was a worldwide brand. It's the idea that started small in the UK had found fancy everywhere, a mix of funny talk, cheap builds, and teaching stuff. Mike Brewer's ability to find weird, underpriced, classic cars and Edd China's careful, detailed repair work amazed car fans in over 100 countries. Viewers in Australia, the US, and across Europe became really interested in how the two guys worked together and the journey a car took from junk to joyride. But with that success came pressure. More episodes, bigger builds, people wanting things done faster. And higher stakes. The show changed. What was once a 30-minute part in a small UK garage turned into a full TV set with a bigger crew and higher production costs. Cars got rarer. Repairs became harder. The audience expected to be amazed, and Mike and Edd had to keep delivering. Edd became a breakout technical star of the show, while Mike handled the buying and selling with charm. It was Edd who got a huge following for his clear, step-by-step explanations and calm attitude. Whether rebuilding a carburetor or making a part from scratch, he wasn't just doing the work. He was teaching people watching how to do it too. His parts turned Wheeler Dealers into Morathon just entertainment. It became like a rolling class in classic car fixing. Fans noticed how real it was, and they loved it with loyalty. Its online groups buzzed, with guesses about future builds, arguments about fixing techniques, and a deep respect for Edd's honesty. Together, Mike and Edd had created something rare, a show that felt like it respected how smart its audience was. But behind the cameras, that success came with creative fighting, and it wasn't long before the cracks in the Chinese surface started to show. Cracks that no amount of editing could fully hide. While Wheeler Dealers kept getting great ratings, the tension between its two stars slowly started to build behind scenes. The success of the show brought bigger budgets, more ambitious builds, new demands from the people making it. But it also brought creative grants, especially between Edd China and the producers, eventually between Edd and Mike. Edd had always been so's technical foundation, and with each season, he pushed for more detailed explanations and real restorations. He believed that every nut, bolt, and weld should be shown back as. That's what real car fans wanted. To Edd, skipping over important repairs to save time or make it faster felt like lying to the audience. But as show expanded into new markets, especially the US TV executives started to demand a faster, flashier edit. They wanted more car reveals and less underthought stuff. The producers leaned toward Mike's vision: shorter repair scenes, tighter episodes, more sizzle. Mike, for his part, wasn't trying to make the show dumb. He was adapting to what TV was changing. He saw Wheeler Dealers not just as a workshop, but as a product that had to appeal to lots of people, car fans, and casual viewer sale. But to Edd, this change felt like giving up too much. It's the heart of the show. The teaching soul was being chipped away, one shortcut at a time. Privately, frustrations started to grow. Edd got tired of having to defend the time it took to properly explain hard procedures. He wasn't being difficult. He was sticking to his beliefs. But in fast world of TV production, beliefs can feel like roadblocks. The fighting didn't result in big arguments or dramatic walkouts. It was quieter than that. A slow, uncomfortable left between two men who once shared same vision. And just as things reached a breaking point, a new player entered the garage and changed everything. In 2016, Wheeler Dealers made a major jump. It was picked up by Discovery's Velocity channel in the United States. It was a huge chance, opening the door to a bigger audience, bigger budgets, and primetime exposure in the American market. But with Dupe Cray came a shift in creative control. Velocity wanted the show streamlined, slicker, and faster paced. The raw educational spirit that Edd had built his reputation on was suddenly seen as too slow for modern audiences. Executives from the network portfleushed for a different format. Their pair segments, once the heart of each episode, were to be shortened a lot, less process, more polish, less teaching, more selling. Edd pushed back hard. He argued that viewers love thoroughness, the problem-solving, detailed walkthroughs. He warned that removing those segments would reduce the show to just another glossy flip series. But Velocity wouldn't budge. In their eyes, Edd's approach was too technical, and they felt it was holding this series back from broader appeal. The decision wasn't just about edits. It showed a deeper disagreement between the network's desire for mass-market entertainment and Edd's insistence on mechanical honesty. Mike, caught in the middle, sided with the network's direction. He had always been the businessman, the negotiator. Understood that compromises were necessary to keep the show alive and changing. But to Edd, that compromise felt like a betrayal of everything they'd built. He wasn't angry at Mike personally, but it was clear their paths were no longer the same. It wasn't just a creative disagreement. It was a turning point. Edd was being asked to stop being who he was in order to keep doing what he loved. And for a man who had built his career on honesty, that was one line he wouldn't cross. The next move would send shockwaves through the TV world and change the future of Wheeler Dealers forever. In March 2017, Edd China released a combat-powerful video on YouTube that left millions shocked. With no warning from the network or the show itself, he announced he was leaving Wheeler Dealers. His reason: he didn't agree with the creative direction the show was taking, especially the decision to cut down the workshop segments which he believed were the backbone of the program. In his words, he felt continuing would hurt his honesty as both an engineer and a teacher. Their response was huge. The internet went crazy. Longtime fans were heartbroken, angry. Within hours, the blame game began. Many pointed fingers directly at the network, but a large part of the audience turned their attention to Mike Brewer. As the on-screen partner was behind, some assumed Mike had either forced Edd out or betrayed him by siding with producers. And, just like that, the carefully built image of the dynamic duo was broken. For Edd, it was never about personal drama. He kept his message professional, never naming names or attacking Mike directly. But between the lines, the message was clear. This wasn't a mutual decision. It was a stand against watering down against making car restoration into just another reality show. Edd had spent 13 years turning Wheeler Dealers into a respected platform for car knowledge, and when that mission was no longer possible, he chose to walk. Behind the scenes, the network scrambled to control damage. Press releases were vague. Producers thanked Edd for his time and expressed excitement about the show's new direction, but no amount of PR could silence the reaction. Fans felt blindsided, forums filled with angry posts. Hashtags calling for Edd's return trended across social media. It wasn't just the end of a co-hosting job. It was the end of an era. And for many fans, Wheeler Dealers would never feel threesome again. Edd walked away with his principles intact. Mike Brewer stayed and walked straight into a firestorm. The backlash was fast, brutal, and deeply personal. Social media turned mean. Rumors spread like wildfire, and within days, Mike and his family were getting online abuse. Threats and messages blaming him for punching Edd out. Mike responded with emotion and defensiveness. He insisted Edd wasn't behind the changes and that hadn't forced Edd to leave. In interviews, called the fan reaction cruel and described receiving death threats. "People think we were best friends," Hess said. "But this was a work relationship, and I didn't make the decision for him to leave." Still, many fans did believe it. To some viewers, Mike had come the face of corporate compromise, the guy who stayed while the real car guy took a stand. But the truth was far more complicated. Mike had always been salesman, the deal maker, the showman. He knew the business side of TV, understood the pressure to change. He likely didn't agree with everything the network wanted either. But unlike Edd, he was willing to play the game. Caught in the middle, Mike tried to defend both his reputation and the future of the show. He reassured fans that Wheeler Dealers would go on and that the new format would still honor the spirit of the series. But the trust had already cracked. What hurt the most, according to Mike, wasn't the work criticism, was the personal attacks. He and Edd had worked together for over a decade. They weren't best friends off camera, but they shared something few people do. Years of building something beloved, and now it felt like the audience had chosen sides, and he was on the wrong one. For the first time, the Dealmaker couldn't close the gap. Not with fans, not with Edd, not with himself. As the dust settled, a deeper question began to surface. Was Edd China naturally the one who chose to leave Wheeler Dealers? Or was he pushed out by Net? We're more interested in ratings than restoration? Officially, the Velocity channel, now Motor Trend, framed the split as friendly. They thanked Edd for his years of service and welcomed his replacement with open arms. But fans weren't convinced. Whispers began to go around. Some claimed Edd had been branded difficult behind the scenes. Others believed producers saw him as a bottleneck, someone who slowed production with his insistence on showing every repair in detail. And when the show moved to the US, many suspected network had been looking for a more friendly format all along. It's the biggest clue. The show's completer boot. With his exit, the technical segments were dramatically shortened. Repairs were rushed through in quick hits. The educational deep dives were gone. It wasn't the same show, and that fans argued proved Edd's point. This wasn't about creative differences. It was a forced change, one Edd refused to accept. Mike, meanwhile, continued taunting that Edd was forced out. In multi-plane interviews, he said he fought to keep the show together, but the story had already taken hold. For many viewers, Edd was the hero, Mike was the company man, and the network was the villain. Even today, no one has offered a clear account of what happened behind closed doors. Edd remained diplomatic, Mike stayed defensive, the network stayed quiet. And so the guessing never stopped. But one thing was clear. When Edd China left the garage, he didn't just exit a TV show. He sparked one of the biggest controversies in car television history and left behind questions that will never be fully answered. After the split, both Edd China and Mike Brewer went on new, very different paths. Edd, always the innovator and teacher, didn't want long to reconnect with fans. In 2018, he launched his YouTube series, Edd China's Garage Revival, which focused on helping real people finish abandoned restoration projects. It wasn't flashy, but it was honest and true to his mechanical roots. Fans praised how real it was and celebrated having the real Edd back on screen. Unfiltered and unedited. Edd also published his memoir, Grease Junkie, a deeply personal book. To more insight into his life, philosophy, and even his time on Wheeler Dealers. He didn't spill every behind-the-scenes detail. He made it clear. Quality and honesty will always come before fame. He remains actively posting updates, electric conversions, and quietly inspiring a new generation of gear. Heads will value knowledge over drama. Mike Brewer, on the other hand, stayed the course. Wheeler Dealers continued with, instead, stepping into Edd's place as mechanic. The chemistry was different, more polished, but still successful. And brought a new dynamic, and later, Mark Kelvy's Priestley. continued the job. Mike kept the franchise alive, traveling thrilled to find rare cars and keep Theffermet fresh. But no matter how much success he's had since, he's never truly escaped the shadow of the split. Nearly every interview still brings up Edd. Theffens never forgot. The roads they chose how to who they were at their core. Edd's craftsman, Mike the showman, and while both found new ways to succeed, the magic of what they had together's unmatched. Even years later, the split between Edd China and Mike Brewer still stirs up feelings. Fans didn't just lose a show format, they lost a connection. Wheeler Dealers was more than just a car show. It was comfort. It was two opposites working together perfectly. Teaching and entertaining without being fake. When thought balance was broken, something in the car community broke too. Comments still flood both Edd's and Mike's social media accounts. Bring back Edd. It's not the same. I stopped watching after you left. The loyalty to that original runs deep. It wasn't about the build's or the profits. It's what's about the bond viewers. Felt like they were in Thegridge too, learning, laughing, and seeing a true partnership. The show tried to move on, but for many, the chemistry couldn't be replaced. Mike's new co-hosts were good, Talenta Davin, but they weren't Edie, and that comparison haunted every episode that followed. Viewers longed for the moments where Edd would fix something with quiet brilliance while Mike bargained for parts. The formula was simple, and it worked. Fan forums and Reddit threads still debate the truth of what happened. Some hold out hope for a reunion, even if it's just a one-off build. Others act that too much damage was done, but what's undeniable is the lasting legacy they created together. In the car world, partnerships come and go, shops close, shows end. But the split between Edd and Mike wasn't just a career move. It was a cultural shift, and to this day millions still wish they could go back and watch just one more car get saved, the old way. Edd China and Mike Brewer may have gone their separate ways, but together they changed car television forever. Their unlikely chemistry, its technical wizardry, and Mike's wheeling Dan dealing charm struck a chord that few other shows have matched. They have a classic car restoration, accessible, entertaining, and most importantly, real. The legacy they leave behind isn't just a catalog of restored classics or global TV ratings. It's a standard, a bar thought of every car show since has tried and often failed to reach. They didn't rely on fake drama or over-the-top gimmicks. They relied on passion, skill, and a genuine love for cars. Their split showed how fragile creative partnerships can be. When business interests, network men's, and personal beliefs collide, something has to give. For Edd, that meant walking away to protect what mattered most to him. For Mike, it meant staying. To keep the dream alive, even IFIT meant walking alone. Together, they showed us that real craftsmanshipers. That entertainment can still be educational, and that the garage, when created with care, can be a place of magic. The cars they saved will live on, but more importantly, so will the example they set. In the end, maybe that's the most lasting impact of their time on Wheeler Dealers. They didn't just build cars, they built memories. They reminded us what's possible when two people from totally different ends, worlds come together for something they both believe in. The wrench, the deal, the dream even. If they never share the same garage again, their story is parked permanently. The hearts of gearheads everywhere.